everybody, it's Felicity, it's Penguin Teen Live, it's another Saturday, and I have another big guest. I promised you when we started this, big guests, big names, big authors, and I'm delivering on that promise every Saturday. But first of all, I want to say everyone at Penguin Teen hopes you're all out there and that you're healthy and safe and well, and that your family members are healthy, safe and well. Remember to wash those hands, remember to stay at home if you can, if you're an essential employer or employee. We thank you so much for that. I'm just going to wait till I see a few more people jump on our live so that those comments can get flowing, because I know you've got questions for my guest. I know you've got very special questions, and I just want to make sure that this is happening. Because I'm not seeing your questions. I'm seeing a few people start to join now. Hit me in the questions in the comments so that I can make sure I can see you guys are all here ready to go for our big special guest. Oh, I've got a thumbs up. Here we go. So I'm going to go again because I like to preamble things. But I said I'd give you big guests, guys. I said I'd bring you big names, big authors, and I'm delivering on that promise every Saturday. Penguin Teen, first of all, wants to say thank you so much for joining us all. We're thrilled that you can all be here. We hope you and your loved ones are safe and well. To our essential employees, including the nurses, the doctors, the grocery workers, the transport workers, we thank you so much. But enough about me. You don't want to hear about me or what I think of the world. I know you're all here for the one, the lady of the hour, the guest extraordinaire, Miss Sabaa Tahir. Woohoo!
Hi, how are you?
So good to see you. How are you?
I'm good, yeah.
Great. Now, I have a lot of questions, and you know this because whenever I see you, I barrage you with the questions. But everybody in the comments who I'm seeing the comments start to move, let's do this. Let's make this a power hour of good questions we're going to get answered for you. So fire away, and I'll start them off by saying, Sky Beyond the Storm has announced, and I just butchered the title again, didn't I?
No, it's Sky Beyond the Storm. You got it.
I have post-traumatic stress because, for those who don't know, when Sabaa first came to Penguin to tell us all about the fourth and final book, there was a guessing game afterwards, and I was so excited to win that guessing game because I knew the title that I made a mistake in front of the entire company. The entire company. It was
okay. I actually didn't remember that, so no one else will.
Oh, it was, yeah.
I do.
It was very, very, very bad. But anyway, but my question for you is book 4. It is now publicly announced. Is that a little bit of a weight off your shoulders, or is it like you can feel a bit more freer to not accidentally let it slip?
Yeah, I feel way better because I feel like I almost let the title slip. I call it Sky for short, and I almost let the title slip like 50 times. And I actually did let the title slip, but thankfully you can like erase Instagram stories and redo them. So that's what I did multiple times when I accidentally let it slip, and I was like, oh man, I got to redo that. So, and I'm also glad that, you know, there were a few, not many people knew what the title was, but you also have this worry that maybe somehow someone might guess it, which doesn't make any sense, but you know.
No, but I would be afraid of that 100%. I would be like, oh my God, someone's going to know. What has the initial response been like for you from hearing from fans' excitement about Sky?
Oh, it's like the exact opposite of when the new covers came out. Like, people have loved the title. I think that I was really surprised and taken aback because I'd kind of girded myself for people being like, I don't like that title, or I don't like the cover, or I have a problem with A, B, or C. And I was like, it's okay, Sabaa, like, you know, you have, you know, created the title that you think is best for this story, and that's all that really matters. So I was really pleasantly surprised that people loved it. I mean, it was like an overwhelmingly, I don't think I saw a single negative comment about the title or the cover. Everyone, it was sort of universally like, yes, this is great.
Yeah, and I think so many people were so enthused about it all. So it was just a really nice moment, I think, for you. And I think for us as your publisher, we got to really celebrate the anticipation valve being almost released a little bit.
Yeah, I do think the one thing that people said is they were like, oh, I wanted it to be yellow because I wanted Hogwarts colors. And I was like, I'm not going to do Hogwarts colors. Like, no. So,
I mean, no, not so much.
Yeah, you know, Ember's its own thing. So that was kind of funny. But other than that, I think everyone really liked it.
Yeah. Well, I have one question before I throw it over to the fans, whose questions I have to say are piling up. Now, for those of you who are watching, I'm the controller of the questions, so I will ask them on your behalf to Sabaa, but she can't see them. So if you feel like she's ignoring you, it's not her, it's me, blame me. I promise I won't ignore you, but I'm the controller. But
Yeah,
my question,
my computer background right now is like a friend of mine who's playing Animal Crossing and telling me about something that's going on in there. So
oh,
I can't see anything.
well, I have to ask. My question to you is, before we get into it, is take us all the way back, right back to the very beginning of Ember in the Ashes. How did this all come about? For those who've not heard you talk before in public about how you got the idea of the story, for those who've never heard of this series before, first of all, where have you been? But tell us a little bit about Ember.
Sure. Thank you for the question. So it's kind of a long story because it was a long time ago. Um, I had been trying to write a contemporary, like, adult novel about my youth, which was, only 4 years earlier or something. So I was a little premature, and I'd been complaining to my mother about it. And I was like, this book is so hard to write. And she's like, I think just sick of hearing me complain. So she was like, why don't you write a fantasy? Like, you love fantasy. You've always loved fantasy. And I was like, Mom, I can't write a fantasy. No one will take me seriously, which is the exact sort of thing an idiot 24-year-old would say, which I was. And then I started thinking about it, and it kind of, that sort of lodged in my head. And then a few months after that, I was working at the Washington Post, and I read this story out of Kashmir about women whose fathers and sons and brothers are taken by the local military forces and disappeared, never seen again. And that really stuck with me because I have two older brothers, and I was like, oh my God, like, what if something happened to them? What if somebody had taken them, And so that story was kind of in my head, and then I worked nights at the Post. So what I would usually do is I would, start work at like 4 or 5, and I would work until anywhere from, midnight to 2 a.m. Or about 1:30 a.m. And I think there was a lot of empty space in my head, and it was filled up with these like really dark international stories from around the world. So then that was sort of a piece in my head, and that's kind of where the story began. But it really, I would say the actual story where I started writing and typing was maybe, I don't know, not that long after that. It might have even been before. I can't quite remember like what the time frame was, but I was in my basement and I looked outside and there was a storm. I was living in DC at that time, and I saw these eyes like in the storm, like looking at me, like glowing. And I was like, that's a djinn. And I went and I hid in my room. And I didn't come out for a long time because they were like height level. They weren't like on the floor, right?
Yeah.
And the next morning I went out and realized that I'd been looking at a fence. And so it was probably like a cat or like a raccoon or I don't know, some animal walking along a fence. But the idea of a djinn in a storm kind of stuck with me. And so that's when I really started typing and writing, was when that happened.
Wow.
So sort of all of those things combined. And then 6 years of bad drafts.
I mean,
until I finally got the right one.
Your idea of a bad draft and my idea of a bad draft are probably very different things, but you're the writer, and so we give the control.
No, it was like I went back recently and read like a really, really early draft. Maybe not recent, like last year, and I was just like, wow, that was that was terrible. So it was pretty amusing. But so if you're out there and you're a writer and you're like, my drafts suck, don't worry. Give it 6 years.
Yeah, we've all got to start somewhere. And so speaking of questions, there's a lot of questions and I don't want to hold everybody up. So let's get to them. So the first question is from Brittany Holloway, who I think some of us may know. And she wants to know is, at any point in writing the Ember Quartet, did you find yourself switching gears and you intended one direction but the story went elsewhere? So
all the time. It's happened repeatedly. I'd say that my characters can be very bossy, and they just, I will have an outline and a draft and, a plan, and I start typing and it just goes off the rails and I'm like, no, but if the idea sounds good, you just have to kind of follow it to its conclusion. And then some of those things end up getting taken out and I go back to the original plan, but oftentimes they don't.
Yeah. That's good to know, though. It's good. Nothing can stay. It's all up for grabs. The next question comes from Kat, and Kat wants to know: is there hope for Elias and Elia? And I'm assuming
I'm not going to answer that question.
I'm assuming Kat's asking though, heading into Sky, and not about the other books.
Yeah, I'm assuming too. I'm not going to answer that question or say anything that could be potentially a spoiler. You're going to have to read the book. So I'm sorry.
I love the long game.
Not a very satisfying answer.
I love the long game. You've got to play it a little bit. Okay, so this is another question from Anya, and Anya would like to know, she said, I love that the Ember story was inspired by Kashmir and that she didn't know that. Is that something that you find from a lot of your readers when they sort of learn the background, that it's more intriguing, or it's an interesting plot point for them to understand, to connect a real world element to what they see as a really fantasy YA book?
Yeah, I found it's sort of interesting. I found that people have looked at the book differently and reread it differently when they've learned that information. I think that a lot of people don't go into this understanding that a large part of why I wrote Ember was that, one, I didn't see a story that represented the problems that were happening to my people, right? The things that were happening to my people. I think a lot of people might look at this and think, oh, this is like an old story that was inspired by, and they'll have like a list of sort of Western inspirations, many of which I've never even read, not realizing that what it's actually inspired by is being from a country where war and violence and terrorism and extrajudicial jailings are things that happen, and being a person of color to whom these types of things overwhelmingly happen in the world. So I would say that Ember is a very international story. It's not meant to be a domestically inspired story. It's an internationally inspired story. So, you know, there are also things in the book itself that I address that I think are issues that people deal with on an international scale and not necessarily here in America. And so when people learn that, they kind of look at it differently, which I think is great. And it's wonderful. And it's some of the best conversations I've had about the book have come out of that knowledge.
Yeah. Well, I sort of have a question for you a bit about that, but in terms of book one particularly is very much set at Blackcliff. It's very much there. That's the world that we know, and we know about this outside world through the mythology, but not really. Book two, though, really literally starts out and you get outside the gates. Did you find that challenging to take that world wider, or had you been wanting to and like knew it was out there, knew what it looked like, knew what it felt like?
No, it was really exciting. My challenge was the other direction. Like, you know, Ember actually started where Torch starts. The early drafts of Ember. Oh. The early drafts of Ember had this girl meeting this soldier underneath the tunnels of the city, and their kind of relationship and what happens between them, and sort of them being from opposite sides of the tracks. And that journey. And I had written, 400 pages of that before I was like, you know what? I think I started too late. I think I have to rewind. And so then it was really about sort of going back and figuring out, okay, who are these people? Why did they end up meeting? So to limit myself to Blackcliff was difficult. Like, I really just wanted to go other places, but I had to, keep the story contained and in that, in order to get the message across that I wanted to get across.
Well, and then I have another question for that. I'm taking over again, but another question is the graphic novel now that's coming out very shortly is even further back into that like younger generation or younger aging of the characters. What was that like now, knowing what you know too?
That was really interesting for me, and I think, it's sort of a complicated answer, so be patient as I sort of weave my way through it. So the first thing is, A Thief Among the Trees is the graphic novel. It's out July 14th, by the way. It is the story of Elias and Helene and some of their friends when they are younger, when they're fivers. They're like 13, and they're out in the world, and they've been sent on a mission by the commandant. And of course, it's not a very nice mission because this is the commandant we're talking about. And for me, initially, I was kind of like, do I really want to tell this story of these characters who are essentially being taught to be the oppressor, right? Mm-hmm. But Blackcliff and that whole world is inspired by the idea of child soldiers, something that was very common in Liberia, common in the DRC, now just the Congo, A lot of parts of the world. It happens in Chechnya. It's happened even in Pakistan and Afghanistan. You have these very, very young people who are being trained to kill. And so I wanted to examine that and be like, do they still have elements of the child about them? Like, do they still think in ways that are childish, or is what they're being asked to do forcing them so deeply into adulthood that they can't really think that way? And as I was sort of researching it and writing it, it ended up being a story that was really fascinating to write, even though it is told from the point of view of these kids who are being taught to oppress. You see the struggle that they have, right? Some part of them knows that this is wrong, and yet it's sort of that or they get killed. And I think that there's a lot of sort of judgment of a lot of these people who were child soldiers without understanding that, if your family is killed in front of you and you're taken from your home as a young child and you're handed an AK-47 and told, okay, kill or be killed, what do you expect is going to happen?
Yeah.
Like, we have a natural survival instinct, and I think that a lot of these kids deserve empathy. So that was kind of where that story arose from.
Yeah. No, I'm fascinated by the process. Now, this next question is a little bit of a left turn, but it's from a young gentleman called Adam Silvera.
Hi, Adam.
Adam Silvera would like to know very urgently is what Adam Silvera is Sabaa's favorite Adam Silvera.
Is Adam Silvera my favorite Adam Silvera?
Well, I think he means book, but I feel like I'm not sure 100% because I would love to know, and I'm reading this verbatim, I'd love to know which Adam Silvera is Sabaa's favorite Adam Silvera.
Oh, okay. Well, the truth is there's only one Adam in my life, and that's Adam Silvera, the author of More Happy Than Not, recently the author of Infinity Sun and the forthcoming Infinity Reaper, which is the best title ever. That's the only Adam for me.
I mean, so I have to ask.
Hopefully this Adam Silvera is happy.
It is Adam. It is the Adam. But I have to ask, is Infinity Reaper, did you have anything to do with that?
No, that was all Adam. We chatted on the phone and he was like, what do you think? And I was like, dude, that is an awesome title. Like, I'm so excited to see another Reaper title. I think it's the coolest ever. And it fits perfectly, I think, what he's trying to do in that fantastic series, which I love. If you haven't read Infinity Sun, jump on it. It's really wonderful world building, and it's really unlike anything else out there right now.
Well, speaking of book recs, Rachel Fryman wants to know do you have any book recs while we're waiting for Sky? Or while we're waiting just to be able to get out of the house?
I have not been reading a ton because it's strange. Like, a lot of people, it's sort of funny. A lot of people are like, oh my God, I have so much time. And I'm like, clearly you don't have 2 children. So I haven't been reading a lot, but I will tell you what I am going to read, like what's on my list. But I don't, I love all of these authors, and so I know these books are good, but I haven't read them yet. Full disclaimer. Okay. So the first one is The Cousins by Karen McManus. I'm so excited I have this. It's not out till December.
I was going to say, excuse me.
But I am like a huge Karen McManus fangirl. I mean, she's probably like Sabaa's weird. I love her books so much. I think she's a fantastic plotter. She's just a wonderful writer, and she's so diabolical in her thinking that I just mad respect for Karen. So that's one. And then I'm reading this one, Ray Carson's book, which is actually out this month. This is called Empire. Sorry, I don't know if the glare is.
No, you're good.
You can see it. It's called Empire of Dreams, and I've started this, and it's classic, beautifully written, rich world building Ray Carson. So I'm excited about this. Mm-hmm. And then the last one. I just finished the first book in this series. Well, not just, I read it like a few months ago, but it's called The Camelot. This one's The Camelot Betrayal. The first one is the Guinevere Deception. I left the Post-it note, by the way, because it says, to my brilliant, fierce wife in space. So, Kirsten White and I were murdered as like one unit in Gemina, the second book in Amy Kaufman and Jake Kristoff's Illuminae trilogy. Yep. So she's, and it was, I think the name was Kirsten Tahir. So we're like married in space. that's why. So, but I loved The Guinevere Deception. I thought it was really dark and twisty and beautiful, and Kirsten's just such a good writer. So these are the books that I'm supposed to read. I'm probably going to wait for the fantasy till after I'm done editing Sky, but this one's next as soon as I can get a minute to sit down and be like, read a book, Sabaa.
Yeah. No, I think everyone's reading is a little disrupted right now. So there is no right answer to that question for anybody. So it's totally fine. Everyone's doing what they can to survive.
Exactly.
It's
yes.
So then the next question.
Lots of chocolate.
Yeah.
So much chocolate.
Oh my God. So much chocolate, so much carbs. Carbs are good.
Yes.
But the next question comes from Alexis Hidato, and she wants to know what's your advice for making realistic romance in books?
I think that romance has to happen naturally.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that there's a lot of like rules for romance that sometimes people follow maybe a little bit too rigidly. I didn't necessarily I think you have to let the romance lead you the direction it wants to, right? So, for example, when I started writing Ember, I had the character of Keenan, and I had the character of Elias, and and then I had Helene, and I knew that Laia was going to sort of have feelings for Keenan first, and eventually meet Elias and kind of develop feelings for him. I didn't know that Helene would be interested in Elias. Initially, she was not. And I had an early draft, and my best friend at the time, well, she's still my best friend. Her name is, well, I can't tell her real name, but her code name is Goldie. So Goldie read those first 5 chapters, and she was like, I really love this, but I'm feeling this vibe from Helene toward Elias, and I'm wondering if maybe there's something there. Mm. And I was like, okay, let me think about that. And so I kind of wandered, down that path, and it happened very naturally. I think that with romance, you want to make sure that that's not maybe all the person is thinking about. Right. Think about your own life and romance in your own life. Whatever romance you've had, whether you've had a million boyfriends or you've had none, there's at least feelings that you probably had for someone or another, and kind of think about how, do you think about that nonstop, or are there other things in your life?
Yeah.
And kind of focus on those other things as well, and not just have it kind of be all about that. Because I think that the places where I see romance go wrong are, one, when it's satisfied so quickly that you have no sense of why these two people are together or why they like each other. And also when there's nothing else going on in the character's life, nothing else interesting. There's sort of straw man plot ideas or whatever, but there's nothing truly that drives them, or that there's no real goal they have or anything like that. That's when I kind of get bored with romance. And yeah. I'd also say, if you want to write good romance, read really good romance writers. Read Sarah MacLean, read Sherry Thomas, read Tessa Dare.
Yeah.
They're all great romance novelists, and they know what they're doing. So read those books and learn from the masters.
Yeah. No, they're great tips. They're great tips. All right. This next one is from Alana, and she would like to know who is your favorite character to write?
The Nightbringer. I don't know what that says about me. I love writing that character. I really do. I think that I feel such empathy for him as a character. I think that he's just been through a lot, and so getting those very brief glimpses inside his head and getting to write from his point of view is really a gift.
Yeah. No, I mean, it makes beautiful sense, because what you do so well throughout the entire series is make everyone who you think's a villain or a bad guy have a complex relationship to everything that's around them and the people that they're against, and it changes your opinions on everybody all the time. It's always moving.
Yeah, and I think that's the type of book I write. I don't think I'm ever going to write a book in which there isn't some kind of backstory for a villain. So I know that there's some people get annoyed and they're kind of like, well, there's always like a reason why. And and I'm kind of like, well, I actually don't like the villains who are just bad, right?
Yeah.
It was my biggest issue with Voldemort. And the reason why I think Snape was such a better villain than Voldemort is because he was kind of flat as a villain. He was just a really bad guy. And like, absolutely, there are villains out there who are just really bad people, but that's not what I personally want to write about.
So you subscribe probably then to the theory that the villain is just, they see themselves as the hero of their own story. It's just being told by someone else.
Pretty much, yeah. I think that if you took Karis Vitoria and you're like, Karis, let's write, a Karis in the Ashes. I don't know. Like, what would this story be? I think that you would really feel for Karis. And I think that there would be places where she went over the line and you'd be like, I don't know about that. But I mean, Karis, I think her issue is that she delights in tormenting people, right? Like, that's where people are like, oh, I guess I can't support that.
No.
Right? But as far as everything else goes, I mean, Elias has done a lot of the things that Karis has done. Helene has definitely done a lot of. I mean, Helene has overseen torture. She's also been tortured, right? But she's overseen it. So a lot of readers who are like, really, really hate Karis and really, really love Helene. It's sort of interesting to me because I'm like, you have a character who is very much a colonizer and an oppressor. I wanted to write that character because that's my, again, like I'm from Pakistan. Pakistan was a British colony. The things that happened under that British colony were terrible, terrible things. So what's it like in the mind of someone who's a colonizer, as someone who's a product of a colonized place? I think that I have this curiosity about it, and also the right to write from that perspective and sort of explore that, to understand it. So it's just, I don't know, it's just kind of interesting to me that people sometimes really, really connect with these villainous characters. I mean, and I get it, because again, I really connect to the Nightbringer, so no judgment.
I mean, it's your fault. You're writing complex characters that we can all, in some parts, identify with, so it's totally your fault.
Yes. Totally.
This next question comes from Ayana Gray, and she wanted to know, do you have any advice for writers who just can't write fast or feel anxious about the writing process?
Who feel anxious about the writing process and can't write fast?
Yeah.
Okay. There's nothing wrong with writing slow. 6 years. I had a job. I had children. I had a family. I couldn't write fast. It wasn't possible for me. I think that as far as anxiety goes, that's something that I think you kind of have to see what level it is. If it's the type of anxiety where you need to talk to someone, then, you need to talk to a healthcare professional, right? If it's more like you're writing and you what I'm trying to say, I guess, is you need to kind of dig down a little bit and figure out what you're anxious about. Is it like, this story is bad? Is it, I don't know how to write? Is it, my language is bad? And sort of figuring out where the anxiety comes from, I think will allow you to address the problem, right? So I felt a deep anxiety about my writing early on because I knew the story wasn't right. But what that meant was I had a plot issue, and I didn't know how to fix that issue. So I went and I read like 50 books about plot, and I fixed the issue, And so that's like the happy version of the story. It's like you figure out what is causing the anxiety and you attend to that, because generally there is some root cause. And then again, in terms of writing fast, no one should be forced to write fast. As Penguin is an incredible publishing house, like not just because, they're super supportive, but because I have had, people at Penguin tell me, take the time you need to write the book you need to write, because they get it, right? They understand that, like, I need to have the time to write the best book possible because my name is on that book forever. So it's got to be something I'm proud of, right? So don't write anything you're not proud of because you're trying to go too fast. Like, you're the only person you're hurting is you, right? No one else cares. Other people are just going to read your book and be like, oh, this book sucks. Like, it's you who gets hurt by that. So that's why it doesn't really bother me when readers are like, why are you so slow? Or like, can the next book come out yet? Or whatever. Because I'm like, I know you want a good book. Like,
Right.
you will be happy if I give you a book quickly, but then you'll hate me forever because it's a bad book.
Yeah.
So, you'd rather have me take the time and write a good one. So I would say the same for you. The question asker is like, take the time to write a good book. Don't let speed be something that's like in your head.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's much easier as the author, you would say, to answer the DMs of where's the next book as opposed to I hated that book.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, it's also really fascinating to me when people are like, oh yeah, I can tell this book was rushed. And I was like, man, I haven't rushed any of my books.
Yeah.
Not a single one. Like, I have not rushed it. Like, if you're seeing something you don't like, it's not because the book was rushed. It's because I wrote something you didn't like.
Mm-hmm.
That's
okay, this next question is from Rebecca Cortez, and she wants to know, and you don't have to answer what, but she wants to know, have you always known how Ember was going to end, or did it come to you as you were writing Sky?
Oh, I always knew how it was going to end.
Yeah.
Yeah, I always knew how it was going to end. There was a few small shifts. There was actually one big shift. There was a couple people who were spared, who I was going to kill. You can thank my mother for that. But I've always known how it was going to end, like way back. I mean, it's like 12 years. Because I could not have plotted the books the way I did without knowing the ending.
Yeah.
I'm not that talented. I'm not clever enough to like pull out a really cool plot in the middle of writing the series. Like, I had to have it set up beforehand.
Yeah, no, that's absolutely smart. Okay, this next question comes from Audrey, who I believe you may know. And she's like, thank you again for having a live chat. She wanted to know about other books that you are or might want to write after Ember. Do you have something in mind? I was just like, what can you say?
I can't answer that question. There is something, and that's all I can say. Yeah, like, I'll get killed by the publisher if I say anything more than that. So, but I do know what, and I'm working on like 10 things right now that I can't talk about. Sorry. Yeah. So, it's unfortunate, but I'm sorry. As soon as I can announce anything, I will.
It's totally fair. You're allowed to have secrets. This is the whole joy of being the author. You're allowed to have the secrets. Okay, this next question comes from Candace Salvatore, and she wants to know is, which character do you relate the most to?
Probably Elias. He's like morally conflicted all the time and like very angsty. He also always feels like he's messing up. He's always trying to save everyone. He has like this savior complex, and I think I really relate to that. I don't have that as much anymore, but particularly as a young person, I had that, and that's kind of what I'm tapping into. I think that, if Elias was fortunate enough to, like, I don't know, reach his 30s, he would probably like ease up off of that, because he'd be like, this is not working out for me. So yeah, I think that I really relate to him, and just sort of that sense of kind of self-questioning, like always wondering if what you're doing is the right thing or not. Yeah. I really relate to that. Yeah. I'm sorry, I have to get my charger.
No, go for it. Go for it, guys.
Hang on.
You go. We'll let Sabaa get her charger sorted, and we can talk about while that's happening. If you're in the US right now, Ember Book 1 is on ebook sale. So if you are watching this live and thinking, I should get into this series, go get it now. It's on sale. It's fantastic. And also, if you are someone who's already got all three, got all of them in all the editions, Sky Beyond the Storm is available for pre-order right now, and you can enter the Penguin Teen pre-order competition, which is only for a limited time, that you get a very special trinket box that Miss Sabaa has seen and approved herself and loves. I'm putting words in your mouth now. But so please go check out.
I love that box. I cannot wait for one. I actually meant to ask you, like, do I have to pre-order to get one, or are you guys just going to send me one? I really want one, but I was like, maybe I need to pre-order my book. I don't know.
You don't need to pre-order your own book. I promise we'll send you one. But yes, you at home, I'm sorry, other fans will have to pre-order the book to get yours. But if you're in the US, and for those who are already going to hit the comments and ask me why can't we do it internationally, it's legal reasons, because each country obviously has different rules around competitions and entries. And so unfortunately, because we're the US publisher of the books, we have to stick to the American market. Hopefully your other publishers will be able to help out as well. So let's get back to the questions, because I see a lot more coming through. Fatima wants to know is, which side character from Ember do you like as your favorite and why?
It used to be Izzy or Cook. But, if you haven't read all three, I don't want to spoil anything for you, but Sabaa's not nice. So I would have to say that in terms of, characters who are in Sky, definitely Musa. I didn't expect Musa to be as liked as he is. I kind of saw him, I'd had him planned for a while, but he's just sort of this, he's not a lot older than Laya. He's maybe 7-8 years older than her. So he's still quite young, but he just kind of thinks he knows everything, and he's very handsome, and he's very arrogant as a result. And he's very smart. And so all of those things make him really fun to write, because he kind of sees himself as unassailable. And to some degree he is, right? He has these little creatures that spy for him. So he knows so much.
Yeah.
And he's just fun to write because he also he serves that kind of bigger brother role that Laya hasn't really had, just, and that Darren's sort of recovering from everything that's happened to him. And so he serves that role of somebody who kind of checks Laya a little bit, and is and he checks everyone, everyone who he's around. He's kind of you're not as good as you think you are. So I really like that about him. It makes him really fun to write. So I like him a lot, and I love Afyara Noor. She's very sort of very smart, and I don't like the word fiery, but I guess fiery to some degree, and a little grumpy too. She doesn't put up with crap.
Yeah.
Her little brother is, drives her insane sometimes, and she's just oh my God, I just want to smack you. So I really like her too.
Well, I have to ask, with the earlier two characters that you mentioned, Izzy and Cook, was that always the plan? Did you always, and spoiler alert, but I'm assuming because you're here, you know a lot of these plot points, was Cook always going to be who she was? And was Izzy always gonna die?
Yeah, they were both marked for, but Cook was always. That was the plan from the very, very beginning.
Yeah. Okay.
And you can see it in the first book. You can see all those little things that you kind of that lead you to who she is and her history.
Yeah. Okay. This next question is from HTTP Starks, which I'm assuming is how I'm saying it. How do you go about telling people that you're wanting to become an author? She's 18 and she lives at home and absolutely has no idea how to tell her parents that she wants to be an author.
I didn't really tell my parents I wanted to be an author. I had to have a day job. I had to have a job. There are people out there who are they can write for a living when they're young, but I was not one of them. I had to have something that paid me money so that I could help my family, so that I could pay for college. I had to pay for college myself, so I had to find something that would allow me to do that. So I actually I never, and this is a lot of authors disagree with me on this, so take it with a grain of salt, but I never tell people to just start writing and become an author at a very young age. It's something you should do. You should also do other things. You should also do other things in your life. If my own children came to me and they were Mom, I want to become a writer, I'd be that's cool. That's awesome. How are you going to do it? Are you going to write articles so that you can get really good at form and how to create a story? Are you going to do blog posts so that you can get a sense of how to bring in an audience? How much are you going to read so that you can, understand what you should be writing, right?
Yeah.
I think that there's a way to kind of do it. But in terms of I didn't tell my parents I was going to be an author. I went into journalism. I was supposed to be a doctor. That failed. I went into journalism instead. My parents were cool, you have a paycheck and healthcare. So that's all we need to worry about. We don't, we can't really afford to pay for you, living expenses. So once I was 17, I was figuring all that out myself. So, and then I did journalism for a long time. And then basically once I had the idea for a story, I wrote in my spare time. And that's what I did for 6 7 years. I wrote in my spare time, like 15 minutes here, 20 minutes there, 30 minutes there. Like, I think there's this idea of the author like sitting down at their desk and like magic flowing from their fingertips, and like that didn't, I mean, magic has never flowed from my fingertips, but that idea of like sitting down at a desk and writing like as a full-time job did not happen until after I had finished, sold, published, and like my first book had come out. That is when I was like, okay, I can now, get help to help me with my children and actually do this as a job, like a full-time job. But that was 8 years after I started writing. So if you're going to tell your parents, if you don't know how to tell them, I mean, I would say like, it's good to just be direct and be like, this is what I want to do. I want to be an author. But I would strongly urge you to look at other fields as well, just as like a backup plan. And again, that's me. A lot of people do not agree with me on this. They're like, why wouldn't you? And it's like, I completely encourage people to write. I think writing is wonderful. I think that when you're from a background where you just didn't have a lot of money, you know how important it is.
Yeah.
And so it's like, make sure you can get a job.
Yeah. No, it's 100% the same. Like, my parents have always been the same. I'm like, that's great. Does it pay? What does it pay?
Does it pay? Yeah.
Can you pay your bills? It's important.
Because it's like when you've experienced you not having money or being poor or like not knowing how you're going to pay your bills, it's completely different than if you've been either taken care of or have like had money your whole life, right? Like if your parents are paying for your college or, it's like, it's just a completely different mindset going into sort of writing. Like, I couldn't even dream of becoming a writer when I got out of college. I had loans to pay.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I wanted to help my parents. Like I needed to make money. So
do you feel now like when you're out and sort of people ask you what you do you say, I'm an author, I'm a published author, or is there still a little bit of that, on the shoulder angel demon whispering?
There is, but not for that reason. I don't tell people I'm an author because I have had too many people be weird about it. Oh. So like, if I tell people I'm an author, immediately they're like, what do you write? If I tell people what I write, they're like, oh, cool. Like, I'm going to read your book. And then like, it can become awkward when like somebody in your personal life, is like reading your work. Like if I hand my book to a friend, like I have a really good friend who lives locally, and she knew what I did. And one day she was like, I would love to read your book. And I was like, don't buy it. I have 1 million copies. Like, I'll give you one. That's completely different. Like, that's me handing her my book and saying, enjoy. I hope you like it. But it's different when like, the guy who like, I don't know, like fixes your AC.
Sure.
Like, no, there's something weird about it. And then I don't tell people, like, if I'm just out, I'll just say, I'm in like a creative field, and I like try to, I don't know, I'm weird about it. I don't know why I'm weird about it. Like, my husband he's like, why are you weird about this? I'm like, I don't know, it's strange. Like, I it's not like any sort of shame at all. It's more like I almost don't want to answer the questions that inevitably come with it.
Yeah.
Isn't that funny? I don't know.
No, I mean, I think it's totally real and rational, and like people often with jobs like that have a barrage of follow-up questions about, tell me, like, we're doing an hour chat based on this question. So,
right. And I don't, and a lot like I think that the place where I most would get asked is when I travel.
Yeah.
And I started telling people that I am an accountant because nobody asks more questions. Nope. Like nobody. Yeah. Right. And so like, it's a horrible, I'm like, I don't say I'm an accountant. I say I'm in accounting because I'm like, I'm accounting the stories of my characters, which is a stretch. Okay.
So you're technically not lying is what you're saying.
Yeah, not exactly lying. So I'm like, I'm in accounting, and like, I never get a follow-up question. It's just like, I don't want to know. Right. So, because sometimes if I'm traveling, like, I don't want to talk to the dude sitting next to me for 4 hours about writing.
No.
And I also don't want to know about the book that he wants to know if I can write for him.
Oh, yeah.
Because he has a really good book idea.
Yeah.
That has happened more times than I can count.
Yeah. No. I don't even write books, but when I say I work in publishing, I get that same question. So
I'm sure you do.
I work in logistics in publishing, which gets real boring real fast. That's what I say anyway. All right, let's get back to some of these questions. Valeria would like to know did you ever think about another color for Ember 4? was it a difficult decision? She loves the purple.
No, it was always going to be purple.
Okay. And were you ever, even like with It's Laia and Elias on the cover, was there ever any discussion about their poses, about the weapons they're carrying? Because
yeah, there was a lot of discussion about sort of what was going to go on the cover and who and even color. Like there was another color proposed at first, and then I was like, no. and they were very cool, right? Like my editor was like, that's totally fine. Like we figured you might have an idea what you wanted to do. Weaponry wise, like it was a choice not to give Elias a weapon in his hand. Like that was done on purpose, right? And to put something else in his hand. And then with Laia, it was a choice to give her the scythe in her hand. Like there's a reason that she's holding that thing. So everything on the cover is like everything is a specific choice. Like it's thought through. Even expressions, poses, the fact that Elias is fading a little bit, his hood is fading, like there's a reason for that. So it's like the whole cover is a big spoiler for the book, but you don't know because you haven't read the book. So.
I know, I have read the book, but let me tell you, I've looked at that cover a lot for any kind of clues that I can decipher, and to hear that everything has got an intentional reason, it was so evil and I love it. Okay, this next question is from Stacey Nicole, and she would like to know is how do you think about your plot? How do you think about your plot twist so well? So how do you plan? Are you a planner?
I'm a planner. Yes. So there's George R. R. Martin calls it the gardeners who sort of plan and play and not plan, sorry, they sort of play in the garden and they're like, I'm just going to put this here. And then there's the architects, and that's people who plan out what they're going to do.
Yeah.
I sort of started off a gardener, and then I was like, my garden sucks and there's weeds everywhere. And like, there's tomatoes growing next to, a strawberry plant and it's just a mess. So then I became an architect, and I was like, let me figure out how to plan this. So my plot twist, first of all, the really, really good plot twists come to me at like 2 a.m. Then the work ends up in how do you make it so that plot twist really feels natural.
Right.
And it feels like you've been building up to it. And so most of my plot twists have been planned for years, right? Like the cook plot twist was planned for 12 years. Like and it's like such a joy to be able to finally write this stuff, I have one for that, again, at this point, 13 years I've had this twist. And so I was so excited when I finally wrote it, because I was like, yes, like it's finally off my chest. I think planning is a huge part of doing good plot twists, because you can just insert a plot twist. That's fine. But then you're going to have to go back and be like, okay, does it make sense in the scope of the story?
Right.
Like, does it work?
Yeah. No, that's good. That's good, definitely. All right. I'm looking at the clock. We've got about 12 minutes left, so I'm going to try and get through some more questions. I've got Lauren Edmonds wants to know, what she's just saying is the audiobook is also fantastic and both narrators are wonderful. Have you listened to the audiobook?
I love it. Yeah, the audiobook's great. The actors are wonderful. Fiona Hardingham and Steve West, like they're spectacular. It's all three of the audiobooks are wonderful. I love them.
Mm-hmm. All right, this next question comes from Anna Hollingsworth, and she wants to know what is your must-read YA series or novel? It's the recommended book that you're putting out there.
The Pelennor series by Alison Croghan. That is my writer. If I had to take one YA fantasy series with me on like a desert island, and I couldn't have anything else, it would be that series. It's just fantastic. It's beautifully written. It's really creative. It sort of takes a lot of the stuff. It takes a lot of the classic tropes in the genre, and it has them, but it kind of reimagines them in a really beautiful way. And Alison Croghan she's Australian, and she's Australian, so and she's a poet. She's also a poet, so her language is like I really do think that her and Laini Taylor are the most like they have the most powerful grasp of language, and you can see that in their work, like those two authors. And I brought up Lainey because I was gonna say the Smoke and Bone trilogy is one of my favorites too. I love that trilogy.
Yeah, good. All of them good suggestions.
And that's pure YA fantasy. So like if you want something in YA historical, like that's 100% Renee Attier's work. You know, if you want something that's like, you know, YA contemporary, like I have a bunch of books for that, but just specifically YA fantasy, like that's the one.
Well, and I would have to ask, speaking of Miss Renee, The Beautiful, which came out last year, The Damned is coming out later this summer. Have you read that book? And can you tell?
Yes.
Damn it!
I have.
And what?
It's so good.
So good. And did you encourage her, as you two are often known to do, to commit more mayhem in her pages?
Yes. I mean, Renee doesn't really need a ton of encouragement, you know, in that regard. I think that she's really good at mayhem on her own, but there were points at which I was like, be meaner, you know, like I definitely, and I'm all for, if I'm reading something and I'm like, this character would not survive this, they wouldn't, you know, I'm all for saying, you know, why did you keep this character alive?
Yeah, no, I feel you.
You know, if there's a good reason, that's great. But if you're doing it because you're afraid to kill him, you know, but that didn't really happen with the Damned. Like I mean, I kind of got into that book and I was like, you don't need me to read this. Like, this is really good.
You got this.
Yeah.
All right, the next question comes from Hardcore TV, but a lot of people are asking in the comments about Harper. And can you tell us a little bit more about Harper? What does he look like? Because they can't picture him. There's a lot of love for Harper in the comments.
Harper is, he's a little taller than Helene. He's like maybe 6 feet. He has black hair. I would say if you had to like code him, he would be, you know, East Asian. I always sort of imagined him as sort of like a darker skinned East Asian. And he's of course very handsome. He has high cheekbones, you know, green eyes, I think, green eyes. And he's very severe in that, like, he is kind of the quintessential Blackcliff guy, right? Very similar to Helene. Like, they both don't really express a lot with their face. And same with Elias, actually. Like, none of them, right? None of these guys, no matter sort of what they look like none of them are super expressive because they've been taught not to be. And then in terms of book 4, all I will say is that you will see a lot more of Harper.
Okay. Well, that makes me a little bit nervous. I don't know if I want to see more of Harper because I don't know what you'll do to him.
Bad things, probably.
Yeah, very much so. Okay, got a few more questions. I'm just scrolling through them all so I don't miss out on anybody. Everyone loves your recommendations for Laini Taylor. Everyone would like more time. I mean, we need to get Sabaa her life back, so let's make sure we use this time.
I'm sorry, you cut out. So
it's okay. No, everyone loved your recommendations for Laini Taylor.
Okay.
So everyone wants to chat to you for all night long, which we can't do because you have a life to have and people to look after. Please look after them. But they wanted to just answer quick question from Steffi Gigi. Will this chat be saved? Yes, it will be. It'll be on this YouTube channel straight after we're finished, so you'll be able to relive the whole moments. This next question, I had it and I've lost it now, is we've already answered that one. Someone, I'm going to call this out because I think it's funny, is that Carla wants everyone to know that she prioritizes live stream over sleep. So that's
okay. I'm so sorry. You're breaking up so much that I cannot understand you.
Can you hear me now if I speak really slowly?
I think you're still talking, but I don't know what you're saying.
Oh no. Can you hear me now?
I can hear you. Yeah,
okay.
But it's hard to...
I'm going to go slow for you. So Aspen wants to know, how did you come up with the titles of your book?
Oh, the titles. Okay, yeah, cool. So just Sky or all of them?
All of them.
All of them. Okay. So An Ember in the Ashes was originally An Ember in the Rafters. That is a direct quote from a song called Wicked Blood by Seawolf. There's a line in that song which is, and there's an ember in the rafters and it's going to burn this whole thing down, which is very much kind of the theme of the books. I had that as a title, and then my son, who used to watch a lot of Thomas the Train at the time, basically was like, Embers and Ashes is better, because I guess that's something Thomas says. He says like cinders and ashes or embers and ashes, something like that. And so I was like, that is a good title. I think I'm going to change it. So then I changed it to An Ember in the Ashes. A Torch Against the Night was, we was talking to my editor at the time, and I was like, light, source, torch, darkness, source, night, and then we were trying to figure out the preposition in the middle, and it was like we initially had a torch in the night, or a light in the night. We were kind of working around there, and then my editor had suggested against, and I was like, that's it, that's the word that pulls it all together. After that, I knew that the preposition was sort of what mattered as much as the other words.
Yeah.
A Reaper at the Gates was always a Reaper at the Gates. Like that one, I don't know where it came from, but I knew Reaper was going to be in the title. That's why you actually have the word Reaper in earlier books. I just didn't know how I was going to. So it was like a Reaper. I was like, a Reaper, where is he? Where's the Reaper? So that was that one. And then A Sky Beyond the Storm came from, it was a completely different title for ages that I didn't really like, and I couldn't figure it out. And then I should, I don't know, pay my children for their title services, because my son and I were driving back from something, and he looked out the window and he was like, oh, the sky is so pretty after the storm, because it had just rained. And later that night at 2 a.m., that preposition beyond sort of got into my head, and I was thinking of sky, storm, and it worked out.
Oh, so basically your son's going to be like, excuse me, Mom, you owe me a lot.
Yeah, and other people are like, can you do my title for me? I'm like, sure.
Let me get my son out for you. It's fine.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm going to sneak one final question in, because we are running out of time. Micaiah Smith wants to say is that the book is coming out 2 days before her birthday, and are there any plans to tour?
I don't know.
Yeah.
Really, that question can't be answered unless we have a better understanding of how long we're really going to be inside. So I think that my hope is that we'll be able to tour, but if, coronavirus comes back in the winter, which a lot of people are thinking it might, then, but if it's gone and everyone's vaccinated, or, it just, I don't know, disappears magically, or enough people have had it that, there's antibodies, if whatever the case, then yes, I would love to tour. But as right now, I'm not sure.
No, and I think, that's that's one of those things. I think it's going to be a new world that we live in, and how we get you out to your fans. We will find a way, as we are showcasing today, is that it may not be in person, it may be virtual, but we're going to make sure that all of the Ember fans, both new and old-time OGers, can see and hear from you for this final book. So, guys, I know so many of you have a lot more questions, but we are going to be doing a lot of fun activity in the lead up to Sky Beyond the Storm. There's going to be so much countdown, fan love. You won't be able to stop Penguin Teen from ranting about it and raving about it and enthusing. So don't worry, this is just the beginning. Sabaa, thank you so much for joining us today. It's been a real pleasure.
Thank you. This was so fun.
Yeah.
It was just it was really, really a good time. And thanks to everyone who watched and who asked questions. You guys are awesome. All my love for you. I hope you're safe. I hope you're washing your hands. I hope you're with people who you can stand if you're quarantined. I hope that, your pets are happy. I'm just wishing everyone health and happiness and good groceries and chocolate.
Absolutely. And read books and enjoy life, and, obviously all of the good things that are out there. Everyone, don't worry, this will be live. This chat will go straight to our YouTube channel, and you can rewatch it and see if you can get any clues from what Sabaa was saying about Sky. I don't think there are. But, guys, thank you so much for joining us, Sabaa. Thank you so much for making the time for us. And that is the Penguin Teen Live Chat for this week done. See you guys.